Hey everybody, I'm Chris Hastings, executive producer for World Channel. Thank you for joining us today for this Meet the Makers event. We've been doing these Meet the Makers events for the past couple of months now, and today we're going to do something a little special, a little bit different. We're going to introduce you to two special series that we air on World Channel every year, but we're going to do it in a little bit of a different way. I am not going to be the one that's going to moderate this. I asked a new friend of mine to join us. I get a chance to introduce you to somebody who I think is really, really special. Her name is Sheletta Brundidge. And Sheletta, how are you doing?
I am fantastic. And I would like to say you should be very nervous about what's about to take place.
Oh, I think I'm scared now. Let me
You
tell
should
let me, let
be.
me tell the audience how I met you though.
Okay.
Okay, because for those of you who know World Channel, I try to do and look for things, and we recently released a film called Fannie Lou Hamer's America, and it aired on PBS. The first time World Channel has had a film air out in PBS, and when the film aired, there was somebody that was tweeting to the film and got really, really excited, and that was Sheletta. And Sheletta, we were all like, we looked, it was like, who is this? Turns out she's a big deal. A big deal, so much so that she is Minnesota's Woman of the Year. And so as I got to meet her and got to know her, I was like, we need to work with you. And so I said, we why don't you host this, moderate this Meet the Makers event? And so I'm going to stop talking because we're going to shoot another interview with you in the future. But I want you to take this over and introduce us to this today's event. So Sheletta, this show is yours.
Well, I just want to say before you check out that I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. You think that I'm blessing you, but really you're blessing me, and I understand how important this platform is and the work that you do. And I just need you to know that I appreciate it, and I appreciate your trust for you handing over your guests, handing over this content to me, handing over this platform to me, so that I can talk to these people and interview them and spend some time with them and introduce them to the world, introduce what they're doing to this audience. And so I don't ever want you to think that I take that lightly, and I do appreciate it. I appreciate you giving me this amazing opportunity.
Okay, well, you drive the ship. I'm going to check out. This is all you go.
Got you. I got you. And again, I'm Sheletta Brundidge, CEO and founder of ShelettaMakesMeLaugh.com, a podcasting platform in Minnesota. And, I am just so excited about what they are doing at worldchannel.org. The importance of these series and what we're doing today is really to show diversity and the diaspora of communities in the public media sector. Now, we got to get right down to these stories and why they matter. Worldchannel.org is a place where our stories can get told from our perspectives. We're narrating them. I remember when I saw Fannie Lou Hamer's America, and I thought, I've read about Fannie Lou Hamer. I've heard people talk about Fannie Lou Hamer, but I've never heard Fannie Lou Hamer tell her own story. And it was so impactful, and it was so amazing, and it was so inspiring that I ran over to worldchannel.org and I signed up for the newsletters, and I started looking at all the content that they had available, and I followed them on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe to their YouTube channel, and I suggest you do the same. Before we speak to our first guest, Leslie Fields-Cruz from Black Public Media, let us take for a moment a sneak peek at what's on season 14, honey. 1 4. Yes, they have been doing it to death for over a decade of AfroPop, the ultimate cultural exchange. They are doing new things. They've got 5 new episodes chronicling social movements and influential change makers from the African diaspora in Liverpool, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Sudan, and so much more this season. You do not want to miss it. It is streaming now.
AfroPoP, The Ultimate Cultural Exchange, debuts its 14th season with a compilation of films that speak to resilience, reflection, and restitution.
They just opened up this love for Black artists.
The idea of what it is to be Sudanese has changed.
This season of AfroPoP exposes the rich culture and strength, which is the epitome of Blackness.
Nous, c'est notre vécu, c'est notre histoire, c'est notre personnalité, c'est notre identité. Il n'y a pas une personne au monde qui peut s'infiltrer dans l'identité de l'autre et s'y assimiler et la comprendre mieux que l'intéressé lui-même. Ça n'existe nulle part.
التجربة اللي عشتها عاونتني باش نعرف روحي، باش نكون أقوى وأجرى.
Powerful stories that are shaping the world in extraordinary ways.
Just that clip, oh my God, makes me want to run over and watch the past 14 seasons, plus the 5 episodes that are streaming now on worldchannel.org. And I have Leslie Fields-Cruz. Lady, you are amazing. She is from Black Public Media. Now, Leslie, talk to me about this new season of AfroPoP.
Well, this is our 14th season, and I can tell you that when we started AfroPoP back in 2008, I didn't think that we would get this far. I didn't know. All I knew is that we needed a space where we could share the stories from the diaspora, right? Because, a lot of people think about what African American is, what that means. And I'm like, African American, that's a lot nowadays in America because of all of the immigrants that have come here from Africa, from the Caribbean, folks that were in the UK that were Caribbean to the UK and back here to the US, as well as those of us who are the descendants of the enslaved Africans. So, it was really this opportunity to demonstrate to the American public that there is no one way to be Black. That, there are many ways and there are multiple stories that we want to share about the African diaspora. And so here we are, 14 seasons later, and we've got these amazing stories that are coming from the UK, from Tunisia. I think it's Tunisia, Sudan, and as well as here in the US. And the idea around it being a cultural exchange is that we really focus on the fact that our cultures, we do exchange culture either through music or literature, art, politics. All of this is in ways in which we can learn from each other and from our experiences. So that's where we are, and I'm excited about this season in particular. There's the premiere episode, which is The Real Thing. Now, we are lucky enough. We've got friends and people out there who are helping us try to identify where all this content is. And a good friend of mine who runs a summer screening series up here in Harlem, in New York, where we're based, Moikansi Kama, she ran this show called The Real Thing. And I said, what is this? I'm gonna go check this out. And I had no idea that this group existed. And yet I was watching the documentary. I heard the song and I said, that song is so familiar. How come I've never heard about this group? We need to get this program for AfroPoP. And that's Everything the Real Thing, which is about this Black British soul group that hit the charts in the UK. And their song, Children of the Ghetto, I didn't even know Philip Bailey redid it. That's how come we know it. But again, that's that exchange, right? That's that exchange. So we thought it was important to bring their story here to the States so that American audiences have a broader understanding of the influence that R&B had across the world and in the UK and for Black Brits. So that's
let's take a look at that clip, because we have a clip of that and it is absolutely amazing. Let's take a sneak peek.
From Liverpool, The Real Thing.
Flashing back to the 70s and 80s, Everything, the Real Thing story, revisits the formation of Britain's first all-black band to hit #1 on the UK pop charts. Dubbed the Black Beetles by the tabloids, the band rose to international stardom with the hit song, You to Me Are Everything. Simon Sheridan's vital and soulful portrait chronicles the challenges the four pioneers from Liverpool had to overcome on their path to success in a very white world. Sheridan shares a collection of groovy images as original members, collaborators, and industry reps recount the Real Thing's humble beginnings and influence on the pop music landscape in Britain and beyond. Next time on AfroPop, Everything, the Real Thing story.
That is so amazing. We are continuing our discussion with Leslie Fields-Cruz from Black Public Media. And that makes me think of a quote from Dr. King that says, all of life is interconnected. There's nothing new under the sun. And when I look at this group, I see the Commodores, I see the OJs. It's an extension of what we see here in America. Were you surprised when you started putting this particular episode together of how much it mirrors our music scene here in this country?
I really was. I mean, because sometimes, especially when you're young, but even when you get older, you're like all up in your own world and in your own music, and you don't really think about where the music might come from, or whether or not it's reaching beyond the shores of your own country or your own community. And so it really hit me when I was watching the documentary how connected, how interconnected we are from throughout the diaspora, right? And that this music spoke to these artists here in the UK, the soul music, R&B. They were influenced by James Brown and everything else, and they decided they're going to try their own, do it themselves. And then they were a hit in the UK with one of their songs. And I had never, that one song that they mentioned, I don't want to give away the whole story because I want to.
Yeah, don't tell them too much. Don't tell them too much.
I won't tell you too much. But yeah, absolutely. There's just so much that even from the styles and the fashion, of course, it's the 70s too, right? So there's that, and that connection going on, but you just never really think about it in the same way until you see it play out in this documentary.
Now, I want to back this train up because you talked earlier and you said there's no one way to be Black. Society, and sometimes even we ourselves as Black people want us to fit in this box. And if you don't fit in that box, if you step outside that box, whether it is voting or music or clothing or hairstyles, then you ain't Black. Tell me how AfroPop is changing perceptions of what it means to be Black and to get outside of that box.
Well, we really try to focus on stories that, one, we want to make sure it's a good story, because story is story, and as long as it has a meaning, message, and people can connect to it, then that's what's most important. But at the same time, I feel that we have spent in the US, how we define Blackness is so minuscule, right? It is so small. And yet and as a Black woman, I have had so many different experiences, and I've learned so much about the diaspora and where people are coming from. My friends are from all over the world, and I was just like, we really need to focus on busting that myth that black culture is a monolithic culture. It isn't. It's broad, it's diverse, that we agree, we disagree. We had one of my favorite episodes was there was a documentary on the punk band Fishbone. And I wasn't a real big, punk kid when I was growing up, but I knew about Fishbone. And when I heard their music, I was like, there's something that speaks to me, even though I'm not really into punk music. But when this documentary came out, I was like, I know that there's a sector of, the Black community that's going to connect to this particular film, because this is their experience, right? And so again, it's like, there is no one way to be Black. That's just it. There's just no one way to be Black. And so if it's our charge to ensure that we have the diversity of stories and the diversity of the experiences on, shared on screen for the public to consume. And it's an opportunity for people to address their own ignorance, right?
Yes. Yeah.
If they think, if when they consider the Sudanese American community and our Sudanese refugees who are here, they'll have a better understanding of what their struggle is and where they're coming from and what they've had to deal with here, as well as where they were coming from in Sudan. And I think that those stories are important for us to understand, appreciate, and know, so that we can again come together and work together as a people.
We're talking to
So
Leslie Fields-Cruz. She's with Black Public Media. Now, Leslie, I have to ask before I let you go. You've got AfroPop. It is streaming now. Go to worldchannel.org, subscribe to their YouTube page, and make sure that you watch this and you share it with your friends and family. You sign up for the daily newsletter so that you can know exactly what they're working on and what they're doing. But with AfroPop, Leslie, you talked about entertainment, you talked about education, you talked about empowerment. What is the main goal when you think about putting AfroPop out there on worldchannel.org? What was your ultimate goal when people watch these 5 seasons? What is it that you want them to take away?
I want them to I think you said it. You said what I reiterated what I said. It's the education, it's the understanding, and it's the entertainment, right? You can't, when we tell our stories, a good story entertains people, period,
That's true.
right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
You
ma'am.
can't educate people unless you're going to entertain them, right? You can educate them, but they may not retain it, they may not hold on to it because they didn't connect to it. So I think when we launched AfroPop, the goal was to ensure, one, that we had a diversity of Black stories and that we are showcasing the African diaspora, and two, that people are able to walk away with a little bit more knowledge of who their neighbors are, right? Because we all live in this world. We're all neighbors with each other, whether we're a block away, 3,000 miles, or around the other side of the world. We're neighbors. We're living in this world and in this community, and it's up to us to understand each other and work with each other. We've got to find a way. So AfroPop is one way in which we're trying to do that.
Well, I thank you so much for being here on Meet the Makers. Remember, guys, you have to go to worldchannel.org. Leslie Fields-Cruz, AfroPop. It is streaming now. You should be very proud of this amazing work because you and your team have done a phenomenal job. And I can't wait for people to watch it and fall in love with it the way that I did. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sheletta. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that Chris has brought you to public media because I will be calling you.
You better call me. I'm listed.
Yes.
I am listed. My DMs are open just in case Idris Elba, and his wife don't work out. My DMs are open.
Right.
And just in case you guys are joining us for the first time, we want you to make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. Go to worldchannel.org to receive emails about upcoming programs. You can find out when the latest episodes of AfroPop drop and any of the other amazing programs that they have available on that platform. They are on Twitter, they are on Facebook. You can go to YouTube where these shows are now. And I'm telling you, if you missed Fannie Lou Hamer on PBS, you can get it on worldchannel.org. Okay, you do not have to wait and check the guide. It is there, it is available. Take advantage of that resource. Now, I want to welcome our next guest, Cheryl Hirasa from Pacific Islanders in Communication, Pacific Heartbeat. That is in its 11th season, and it is an anthology series that provides viewers with a glimpse of the real Pacific, its people, the cultures, the artwork, the issues Okay, it ain't all rainbows, sparkling roses. The series is a diverse array of programs it'll draw people, and if you're like me and you watch it, it'll draw you into the heart and soul of this culture. And Cheryl is with us now. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I absolutely appreciate it. But before we get to her, we definitely want to show you a clip, and I tell you, this program is life-changing.
They come from the most brave and strongest fighting tribe.
It has been debated whether the world will end in fire or ice. But for me, in my homeland, it will end in water.
Emma's continuing to be with us because there's some truth that we haven't dealt with.
He wahi pana ia nā tūpuna. He wahi ho ola no ia o tu'ula hui kanaka.
And Cheryl Harassa is here. I'm telling you, I have been waiting to talk to you, lady, because this is an amazing piece of artwork. You are the interim executive director for Pacific Islanders in Communications, and your role in all of this, you take care of this whole overall strategy of the organization. And girl, you wear many hats. I mean, we could talk about a lot because you got the series producer, interim director, strategy. I mean, how do you keep it all together as far as the organization, and still have the heart for putting this piece and pushing it out through worldchannel.org?
That's a great question. It takes a really great team that we have at the organization. And it's also years and years of a really great foundation that was laid by our late executive director, Leanne Frere. And a lot of credit goes to her for building the team and also building Pacific Heartbeat. She was the co-creator for the series 11 years ago. It's just been an amazing series that's grown over the years, that really embodies what we believe in and what our mission is at Pacific Islanders in Communications, which is to share as much information and stories about our Pacific Island communities, to create, like Leslie was talking about connection, about sharing experiences, human experiences, but through a Pacific Islander lens that really shows that there is this interconnection between all of us. We all deal with the same issues. We all have similarities and universal experiences that we go through, and then along the way, really exploring what it means to be a Pacific Islander, and hopefully, as Leslie also mentioned, really exploring the beauty, the complexity, and the diversity of Pacific Islanders and Pacific Islander communities, throughout the Pacific. And, that includes Micronesians, Polynesians, Melanesians, and of course, Native Hawaiians. And, we lovingly refer to it as the Blue Continent, and, every island, every, country, every region has their own language, their own culture, their own history that we endeavor to share with not just the American people, but as a wide audience as possible.
And so we're talking about 11 seasons of Pacific Heartbeat. Did you think, Cheryl, that it would last this long? People telling stories in their native culture, in their native language, not, someone coming in who doesn't understand what they're saying, and they're speaking in their native tongue. And you see all these amazing images, and there's so much pride in the culture, and in the language, and in the food, and in the music, sharing with people all over the world.
It isn't really hard to believe that we're, continuing this for 11 seasons. And, I hope that, I know that we'll be continuing it for many, many more. There's a lot of stories out there, a lot of stories, not just, not just covering the history of, people and places, but also, what our contemporary lives are like, the challenges, like, in this season 11, we have High Tide Don't Hide, which, highlights, challenges around climate change and
Yes.
the environment. And so, what's interesting is that it really takes a look at the issue, but then also brings in this kind of other layer, which is, who should be part of these conversations when we're talking about the environment. It affects everybody, obviously, but really making sure that the people that are directly affected by it are part of that conversation. And so, those are the kind of stories that just, there are thousands of those stories that still need to be told.
Well, we have a clip from High Tide Don't Hide. You all take a look at this amazing video.
If you go into any high school, most kids my age would tell you that climate change is their biggest worry.
We wasted so much time.
Hopelessness is useless.
We're not going to let them stand by and just talk the talk.
Why are there no brown voices in these conversations when this issue is affecting us?
Wow, Cheryl. I mean, these are our kids. I have to ask you, you talk about all the stories that are out there. How do you pick them? I mean, you have so many stories on your plate. How do you go through everything that you've gotten and you've heard about and you've seen? And, how do you decide what makes the season? You've got several stories to pick from I'm sure the hundreds that you've received.
Yeah, well, we actually, have some really great relationships with film festivals, domestically and internationally. So we always get, emails kind of giving us a heads up on, really great films. We also fund films through our funding initiatives. So we have this really great pipeline of projects that are in various stages of completion, that when those projects are ready for broadcast, we'll go through those and see what's a good fit for Pacific Heartbeat. Obviously, all of them are, but that's one of the things that I really love about my job is watching those films and learning as much as I can through these stories. It's an honor to be able to, it's an honor for filmmakers to share their stories with us in consideration for Pacific Heartbeat. And it's a lot of hours of watching. But like I said, that's one of my favorite parts of doing this job is, just watching films, learning from them. And, the not so fun part is making the hard decisions.
Yes. Now, how important is it, and what does it mean to be able to have these films told from a different voice, from a different lens, from the Pacific Islanders community? To give a voice to people who wouldn't otherwise have one, especially in film.
Yeah, no, it is really important. With the film that we just previewed, High Tide Don't Hide, it's I think without that without that character Feely,
Mhm.
who speaks in that promo that we just watched, she really brings up this point, which maybe to you and I is common sense. If there are rising sea levels in the Pacific that are that are basically swallowing up islands in the Pacific, then why wouldn't brown voices be part of this conversation around climate change and the effects of climate change? But perhaps to other viewers or other sectors of our society, that might not be so common sense. So, it is important to have these perspectives to bring to light that, that, well, just generally, when you're having conversations like this, to be as inclusive as possible, but also to make sure that the people that are most affected, who are usually marginalized communities, communities of color, they need to be part of that conversation.
Well, you are doing just that with Pacific Heartbeat. The brand new series is streaming now. You all have to go and check it out. And if you haven't seen the other 11 seasons, you got some binge watching to do in your life. Cheryl Harassa from Pacific Islanders in Communication, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to bring you back in just a second, but I want to make sure you all know, without a shadow of a doubt, that worldchannel.org is here. And what they do is amazing. 24 hours a day, you can log on, and there are stories told from perspectives from around the world. They will change your life. They will connect you and provide you an interconnection, whether it is through the AfroPoP series or the Pacific Heartbeat series. They have shows and information and education for all of us, whether you are 8 or 80. There is something on worldchannel.org for you. So make sure you log on, tell your friends about it, follow them on Facebook and Twitter and all your social media platforms, and subscribe to their YouTube channel. They changed my life with Fannie Lou Hamer's America. They give different perspectives. They provide education as well as entertainment, just like these two shows we've been talking about here today. And so get on there, immerse yourself in their website, do whatever it is that you need to do, and tell your friends about it. But before we go, I have to thank Leslie Cruz Field, and Cheryl Harassa for sharing their upcoming documentaries with us today, and their commitment to highlighting stories that reflect communities from around the world. Thank you, ladies, so much, Leslie and Cheryl, for being here today.
Thank you, Sheletta. This has been great.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I think that we have educated, we have entertained, we have empowered and inspired the next generation. And before you ladies go, I want to talk to you and ask you a quick question about how important it is that we involve our young people in this. We're women of a certain age, but when I sit down and I watch this with my teenager and my 7-year-old and my 8-year-old, I see a sense of pride and purpose, and they have questions, and those of us who are watching may also be women and men of a certain age. But how important is it? And we're going to leave with this question. Is it that we share this with our children, with our classrooms, with the kids who come into our library, with our daycare centers, with our youth groups, with our church groups, with our youth centers? How important is it that we share these stories and these series with them?
I think it's vital that we share these stories so that our young people understand that the world is a lot bigger. It's a much bigger place than what they might know or what they think they know, and that they walk away with an awareness and an appreciation of what other cultures and other people have to offer, so that when they come in contact, it's not like, I've never ever. It's like, actually, no, I know a little bit of something, and then they want to learn more. right? So I think it's so important for us to ensure that our young people engage with these stories. My kids, I have an adult and a young adult now and a teenager, and they've seen so many documentaries, and sometimes they're my test case as to whether or not you think this will resonate with your group. And when they're like, then I know it's like, maybe this is the right one. But they've had that exposure, and I'm really thankful that I've been able to do that for them. And then sometimes they tell their friends. So yeah, I think it's vitally important.
Cheryl?
Yeah, I just echo what Leslie said. It is vitally important. And I would also add that, I think for people of color, it's very important to see ourselves in media, and know that these films are being made by people from our own communities, that were represented in an authentic and truthful way, that truly represents the ever-growing diversity of America, of this country, because I just remember growing up watching Charlie's Angels thinking, how come there's no, Asian or Pacific Islander, women on this, and having to choose like, okay, well, if I'm going to play Charlie's Angels, which one am I going to be? Obviously the brunette, So it's really important that we have representation, not just behind, but also in front of the camera. And, for young folks, it's really important to see themselves like this, especially, in the documentary that I covered earlier, which is High Tide Don't Hide, seeing another young person, young adult, having the agency to talk about issues, to bring it to light, to challenge her contemporaries on the way that they think. This will empower and inspire, next generations.
Oh, yes, it will. And you all have done that so well with Pacific Heartbeat and with AfroPoP, now on worldchannel.org, streaming on the platform, streaming on YouTube. Check it out again. Share it, I think, with everyone especially those young people. Inspire and empower them with which you ladies have done. And you are leaving a lasting legacy and an impression on everyone with these two amazing shows. Leslie and Cheryl, thank you so much for being here on Meet the Makers.
Thank you, Sheletta.
And you all, thank you for being here. Now, don't let it end here. Go to worldchannel.org. Make sure you sign up for that daily newsletter. Look at all that amazing content and check out the documentary that inspired me to become friends with the platform, Fannie Lou Hamer's America, along with AfroPoP and Pacific Heartbeat. You all have an amazing day.